name is Andy Schell. I'm a Vice President at Oxford Computer Group. I, along with Yash Prakash from Saviynt, where he's the Vice President of Products, is going to talk about Microsoft and Saviynt and enterprise governance in the cloud. I'm hoping that most of you have heard of Oxford over the years. For those who haven't, we're a Microsoft Gold partner focused on providing identity and security services to our customers. Our company headquarters is actually based out of the UK, and we have our US headquarters here in the Seattle area. We also have subsidiaries in Germany and the Netherlands. We've been a Microsoft partner since 2002, and our primary focus for most of those years has been helping our customers implement what is now Microsoft Identity Manager, previously Forefront Identity Manager, and Identity Lifecycle Manager. We've done approximately 900 of those implementations over the years. And I tell you this because to give you a perspective on where we're coming from as far as identity governance and our experience relative to our clients and what our clients need. From a concept of services we offer to our clients, right, we basically break it down into 4 different areas. Identity and access management, identity and access governance, security transformation, and managed services. Yes, can you take the slide, go through the slide. Yep. Go to the next one. Yeah. All right. Over the years, right, in our experience with Microsoft Identity Manager, Azure Active Directory and stuff like that, clients are extremely happy with those products, and they've solved another of very important business requirements, and they've invested a lot of money in that infrastructure, and so they're looking to continue to leverage that infrastructure as they go forward. But what we're really seeing now is, as governmental requirements around compliance, regulatory requirements, and security requirements, is there's added emphasis on certain things around segregation of duties that the government is requiring, that companies are requiring themselves for security perspective, that is currently not offered in the Microsoft stack. Capabilities such as continuous controls monitoring, risk-based identity analytics, benign versus malicious analysis around people accessing data and applications, forced us to kind of go look at other solutions in the market to help our clients solve those problems. So we looked in a number of different solutions, right? Did a pretty in-depth analysis around how we go about solving the regulatory compliance problem for our customers. And after that analysis, we decided to partner with Saviynt. The reason we went with Saviynt, right, for our client base that's sitting on the Microsoft stack, is Saviynt actually enables our clients to continue to leverage their existing investments in Microsoft identity solutions. There's no reason to go around and rip out MIM, rip out Azure AD in order to get the governance and compliance requirements necessary. It also provides a critical capability in that it's focused on risk, right? It evaluates on a near real-time basis exactly what's happening in your identity environment, calculates a risk perspective, and then performs business rules based on that risk. You can see the Gartner quote there. I don't need to read it, but it's right there, right? So second deal, it's provided as a service, right, which makes it easy to implement, and it's a very modular architecture that you can implement in a phased approach, application-based, right? So if you're looking for governance of over O365, you can do that. If you're looking for governance over your ERP system, you can do that, and you don't need to kind of do the full bang. So put together. We're going to talk to this slide for a little while. So when we talk to our clients from a perspective of identity, we kind of break it up into these 5 pillars. The first pillar is, at the bottom level is that transaction layer. It's the core provisioning, deprovisioning piece, attribute synchronization, birthright stuff that, an employee is onboarded from HR, they get this amount of access, right? You create a mailbox for email, you give them an exchange account, whatever. And when they leave the organization, that access is taken away. That is kind of the core of what Microsoft Identity Manager does, and that's what we've been doing for many, many years. As you move up the stack into kind of the user-focused services that are offered, all the self-service password stuff, all the self-service attribute management, single sign-on, group management, those pieces that sit in, user-friendly type situations. We're leveraging Azure Active Directory. Most of our clients actually own Azure Active Directory, and they're leveraging it for that reason. They're also leveraging Azure Active Directory for the security piece, multi-factor authentication, identity protection, those pieces where an action needs to happen to ensure that a user is who they say they are. Almost 100% of our clients are using Azure Active Directory. But now we talked about earlier, right? Our clients need more, right? So when we move up the stack on enterprise identity governance, the access certification, the segregation of duties, and access certification is not necessarily just on a quarterly basis or just on a routine basis, but access certification based on risk levels, right? There's a lot of cases where, managers are overwhelmed with the amount of access certifications, and they just kind of click the certify all, right, without some kind of analysis of who should get access and who shouldn't get access. And so that ability to leverage a risk analysis so that a manager can go in and make an intelligent decision based on a recommendation. Got a little background noise there. Segregation of duties analysis, not only, if segregation of duty analysis is provisioned, but whether a person is actually accessing those provisions in violation of the segregation of duties policies. For that piece, is why we selected Saviynt. Then the risk-based identity analytics piece, that ability to leverage everything that's going on. We'll have somebody, I think, background noise coming in. So the segregation of duties piece, and then the role-based, the ability not only to do role-based and attribute management, but actually to have a dynamic role model based on actual access requests. So if, a person with a certain level of attributes, 90% of those have this type of access. The 10% of those that have a different type of access is the ones we're starting to look at. And that combination of a risk-based identity analytics enables us to be more effective in our compliance programs without overwhelming managers and users with it. So with that, I'll turn it over to Yash, and he can talk in more detail around the Saviynt piece. Yash?
Great. Thanks, Andy. Appreciate the great partnership that we have been able to establish, as well as putting things in perspective. So thank you for that. And for people listening in, we have the Q&A open. So let the questions come in. We will answer as we go along, or at the end of the session, we will answer those questions. So again, thanks, Andy, for that. Great bit of setting the context here on how Microsoft provides various solutions to address the critical business requirements that organizations have, and how Saviynt is enhancing the security, enhancing the compliance for various Microsoft solutions, including the identity stack. So just to bring everybody on the same page in terms of the various solutions that Microsoft offers and how Saviynt complements it. This slide provides you a quick overview of that. So as you can see, there are different cloud solutions that Microsoft offers, right from the Microsoft Azure stack, which offers the infrastructure as a service. We have Office 365, which has become ubiquitous. There is no organization that doesn't use Office 365. And then Microsoft offers the enterprise mobility and security solutions. Just to kind of look at what security solutions are offered on top of these. So as far as Microsoft Azure is concerned, it is integrated with the Azure Active Directory that Andy was alluding to, and then provides significant security with the Cloud Identity Store. As far as Office 365 is concerned, there is out-of-the-box features around the data loss prevention, encryption, and rights management. And from an EMS perspective, there is capability around Active Directory, Azure Active Directory, the MIM solution, the Microsoft Identity Management solution that Andy referred to, and new and great things coming in terms of the conditional access, multi-factor, and risk-based authentication. So this is great as far as the foundation of security, and what Saviynt does is enhances that security and compliance posture as organizations consume these as services. So the solution itself is broken down into two important areas. One is the identity-centric CASB, which primarily offers all the cloud access security capabilities, including visibility across the different Microsoft as well as non-Microsoft cloud services that you have within the organization. Privileged access management, we will get into more details as we go along. A critical component of cloud security is privileged access management. Ability to protect the workloads in case of Azure, as well as data in case of Office 365, and then protecting it in real time. And finally, as organizations use SharePoint online and whole capabilities around Office 365, how do we perform site management and protecting those different SharePoint sites? So that is covered under the identity-centric CASB solution. And under the identity governance and administration solution, it covers a lot of capabilities that Andy alluded to, including the certification, the risk-based certification, the SOD management capabilities, the continuous compliance requirements, and how do we address that, and the overall governance of both the users as well as the different cloud services that organizations have. So let's look at in more detail around the Azure as well as the other areas that I highlighted. So let's go deeper into the Azure and the DevOps adoption. So key considerations around security include: how do I gain an understanding of risks that is within the organization and within the deployment that I have for Azure? It becomes essential that risks are evaluated across various entities. It could be the user's access, it could be activity that is happening within the infrastructure, as well as the ecosystem around it. It could be the DevOps resources, it could be new services that organizations are consuming within Azure. The other important aspect or consideration is managing the privileged access itself, right? So there are, with the cloud-based infrastructure or infrastructure as a service providers coming into picture, the privileged access management is significantly different from the traditional on-premise solutions. right? So it is important that the privileged access is granted and managed appropriately, and most importantly, monitoring the access, monitoring the activity of those privileged users, because they have the keys to the kingdom. So there are other best practices, such as moving beyond, moving away from the shared accounts that we are all used to, and the jump box architecture, which prevents users from having the seamless experience. The third aspect of this is ensuring appropriate access at all times. It's essential that we don't expose Azure, which becomes a critical infrastructure component of the organization, exposed, and people having excessive access. So being able to enforce appropriate access at all times, from an authentication standpoint, using the Azure AD, as well as the conditional access that Microsoft has introduced, provides a great solution. At the same time, enforcing that from an administration and governance standpoint becomes critical as well. Now, as the fourth important aspect of this is, as organizations move the workloads from on-premise to the cloud, it's important that the agility that the infrastructure as a service provider is bringing to the table, but at the same time, important that the process itself is secure. So the whole concept around the secure DevOps, or the DevSecOps, and being able to ensure security throughout the continuous integration and continuous deployment cycles. And finally, automating the user's access lifecycle management, wherein when the user comes in, what access should the user get, based on a variety of factors. As Andy was pointing out, it could be based on the user's risk, user's profile. So how do we assign appropriate roles and access to the users across various services, and in this case, Azure? So how do we ensure that users get the right access to the virtual machines or the workloads that we have on Microsoft Azure? So these are some of the key considerations that one needs to look into before adopting and continuing the journey of migrating workloads into Azure. Let's now take a look at the solution in a little bit more detail. As Andy was pointing out, we provide a modular solution for Microsoft Azure, as well as other infrastructure as a service providers. The key aspects of the solution that has been laid out here includes the discover phase, wherein we are looking at identifying all the different services that are available within the infrastructure as a service providers, in this case Microsoft Azure. Bring the users access, the policies, the groups, the various objects that are stored within these services that helps in enforcing security. So discovering that and using that to analyze if there are any issues with the configuration, with the compliance requirements, with the policies that have been defined as part of the organizational security requirement, is then analyzed, right? So with the analyze phase, the risk signatures or the security controls provided uses the information that is discovered in order to identify all the risks. There is data also sitting out there, so being able to identify the risk associated with the data, whether there is any sensitive data being stored, and identifying the ownership of that is also part of the analyze phase. Once you have a clear understanding of what services you're consuming, as well as understanding the risks associated with those services, it then becomes easier for you to ensure or put controls from a protection standpoint. And these could be real-time security controls, wherein if there are any changes that are happening to the configuration, happening to the infrastructure, you're in a position to react quickly through responses such as shutting down the virtual machines, or ability to notify administrators that, hey, something is going on that is unusual. Or if people get access to production workloads which they are not supposed to get and they are coming from a development background, so identifying those issues and then immediately shutting down access to those users. So being able to protect all the workloads, all the services that Microsoft Azure offers becomes critical. And finally, from a management standpoint, being able to assign access in an appropriate way, using necessary approvals, necessary vetting or risk analysis before the access being granted, performing continuous review in the continuous controls monitoring helps manage the risk appropriately. Let's take a look at the solution in a little bit more detail. As I alluded to earlier, the Azure comprises of a number of different services. It could be the virtual machines, the SQL or the database as a service. There are 100 other services that Azure offers. It could be load balancers, it could be disks, the virtual network, the databases, and others. Now the security is embedded into each of these services. So what we do from a Saviynt point of view is to bring data from all the different services. So we bring Azure Active Directory users, we bring the roles, the permissions, the configuration, the events, the usage. All of that is brought into Saviynt for providing the risk visibility, for providing privileged access management, to ensure security is embedded into the DevOps processes, as well as access management in an intelligent way. So as you can see, we bring data from various sources. We collect Azure Active Audit logs. We connect to Azure APIs to bring this information. We are also connecting to the various DevOps resources such as Chef and Puppet to bring the data in and then enforce and provide visibility and security. As you can also see that we integrate with other systems to the left, which shows you the integration with HRMS system, so or integration with the SIM or the DLP solutions, which helps in providing more context and a contextual based access management and security solution. You have different types of users coming in to the Saviynt to view the security posture, as well as the auditors from a compliance point of view can come in to view the reports or to see if there are any compliance violations and so on. Let's look at the solutions or the key capabilities in a bit more detail. So as I mentioned earlier, with the ability to look at or bring data from various sources helps us identify what violations are there within the infrastructure. Let me be clear that Microsoft provides the best security out of the box, but as you all know that it is a shared responsibility. The infrastructure security is managed by Microsoft, whereas the actual configuration of this infrastructure lies with you as customers. So it's important that you understand what the violations are, what the misconfigurations are. By providing over 200 security risk signatures, what Saviynt provides is out-of-the-box ability to identify violations. So as you can see, we bring data from various cloud services and then provides a dashboard view of what's going on within the infrastructure. where are the security violations, how can I mitigate them, how can I take actions on top of actions in response to these violations. So it gives you a comprehensive visibility into the security of Azure as well as other infrastructure providers. The second important thing is mapping of these controls to regulations or compliance frameworks. So it helps us from a compliance point of view that these are the control frameworks that my organization adheres to, and these are the regulatory requirements that I need to meet. And by mapping these controls to the different resources, I'm able to easily understand if there are any violations or if there are any issues meeting any of the regulations. So if one needs to perform SOX, critical SOX audit, it is easily possible to map the risk associated with the different resources to the SOX compliance requirements, thereby identifying and prioritizing those risks and then remediating it immediately. So one other thing that we do as part of providing visibility is the detailed log analysis. Now, along with the access, we bring in the activity and the log information that's basically going on within the infrastructure. Helps us in identifying any violations or any deviations and also do a drill down analysis of what is going on within the infrastructure. It's possible for us to see what privileged users did or what specific actions happened on a virtual machine or a data storage. So moving on from the visibility, the second most important aspect is the management of the privileged users. As I mentioned earlier, the concept of privileged access management is significantly different in the cloud as compared to the on-premise infrastructure as well as systems. With the ability to access or create workloads right from the console, enables the privileged users to do whatever they want if they have unfettered access. So being able to restrict that access in a self-serviced manner helps in ensuring that only the right people have access and only for a certain duration of time. So instead of, again, using a concept of shared accounts or the generic accounts, we have used the idea of emergency access or firefighter access, thereby elevating the access of an individual rather than providing a generic account which can be checked in and checked out by various different users, thereby bringing the accountability in question. With multiple levels of approval workflows in place, it is possible for organizations to establish their own processes on how a privileged users get access. And once the access is granted and the privileged user takes certain actions, it is possible for us to bring the activity into the solution. So that enables us to identify if there are any activity that required additional validation, that requires certification, that also that also helps in identifying any suspicious behavior, suspicious activity. So it's not just provisioning access or provisioning elevated access to the users, but it is also the ability to monitor what happened within that time window that enables organizations to ensure that privileged users are doing the right thing. And third, and another key aspect is the ability to automate access lifecycle management. By integrating with the HR systems, Saviynt solution helps assign as well as unassign access to various users. So we, as Andy was pointing out, by evaluating the risks, by looking at various business policies, by looking at the SOD rules that have been set, Saviynt solution helps in assigning the right access and maintain appropriate access at all times. I've heard many cases where the Azure account was left open, or the residual access was identified as part of the audit when the person has left the company for a while. So by integrating it with HR as well as driving various intelligent workflows, it is possible to eliminate this issue of residual access, use the federated access and the appropriate roles and groups assignment based on the user's profile as well as the risk profile. As you can see, this a few screenshots that allude to that, wherein we are automatically creating requests based on the HRMS profile or the data coming in from HR. At the same time, being able to assign appropriate Azure related roles and groups based on the profile of the user. All right, so now we understood what are some of the security considerations of Azure, how to protect Azure and enhance the security of Azure by incorporating the privileged access management, by incorporating the visibility and also the access management capabilities. And it ties back to the capabilities that Microsoft offers in terms of the Azure AD and the security provided inherently within Azure. Now let's switch gears and go to the other key solution offering from Microsoft, which is Office 365 and SharePoint Online. As I mentioned earlier, I have not seen any organization who has not implemented Office 365. There has been tremendous uptake for this migration. People and organizations are migrating the data as well in SharePoint through SharePoint Online. So what are some of the key security considerations that we need to look at? So it's important that the data which is being migrated to Office 365 and SharePoint Online is protected, right? You ensure that the data is protected and secure at rest, as well as in transit and in real time. In case of SharePoint Online, it is important that the site collection and the various options that SharePoint provides is appropriately managed and administration is performed appropriately. At the same time, with Azure Active Directory and the SharePoint groups, it's important and essential that we ensure appropriate access and governance at all times, and implement various rights management and encryption technologies that Microsoft offers as part of protecting the data. So let's look at a solution from Saviynt on how we complement the solution that Microsoft offers in EMS. So as I mentioned, Saviynt integrates with the Microsoft EMS solution for comprehensive data access governance. Similar to the flow that I explained for Microsoft Azure, the solution for Office 365 and SharePoint and any other data collaboration providers follows a similar path of discovery, where we are connecting to these cloud services and bringing data of or information about the data, basically the metadata information, understanding of who has access to that data, as well as usage information on who is accessing or downloading or uploading information. We also classify the data, which helps in identifying if there is any sensitive data that is being uploaded or that is being stored in the cloud, and then helps with the reporting dashboards. Right? Essentially goes back to the visibility aspect, where you could gain visibility on where your data lies, who owns that data, who has access to that data, and has there been any violations based on the different risk signatures that you have configured. Which takes me to the next phase, which is the analyze phase. By providing various risk signatures, it is possible for organizations to identify if there is any data violations or the violations with respect to how data is handled. It's also possible to identify if there is any violation in terms of the data sharing. So for example, Office 365 provides the discretionary access, wherein it is possible for someone to share a specific document within or outside the organization. Now that is an exceptional access and violates the assignment of access which is inherited from the either the folders or the SharePoint side in an inherited way. So it's possible for us to identify if there is any in the breaking of that inheritance, if there is any violation in the way the access is granted to a specific document or a set of documents. After the analysis phase, it is time for protection. So it's possible for organizations to define various policies on how do we handle these violations. It could be real-time quarantining of that data. It's possible to tombstone that data and enforce various policies. It could be the encryption and the information rights management using the Microsoft solution. The ability to manage, again, the privileged access to this data, and also the site permissions management itself. And finally, the monitor aspect of the solution helps in identifying the events that are happening, being able to look at the events in real time and respond to that. Ensure that the continuous controls are being monitored and enforced, and then inform the appropriate audit, security, and administrative teams to identify and react to those issues or incidents. Being able to identify anomalies and ensure that appropriate access is granted for all the users. Let's take a look at this real-time security in action. So the scenario that I'm going to explain here is when a user is uploading a sensitive document to SharePoint Online or on Office 365, or when a user shares the document internally or externally. Now when this activity happens, Saviynt intercepts the document to perform the data classification, as I mentioned earlier, and identify any risks associated with this action. Depending on that analysis, Saviynt either locks or quarantines the document. When this action is performed, what Saviynt also does is executes all the data access policies. These data access policies can be configured based on your organizational requirement. It could mean additional approvals before that specific document can be opened up, or if it contains sensitive document and should not be shared outside of the organization or outside of the department, it's possible for enforcing the removal of the shared URL, encryption, or any additional policies that could be enforced. Once that is completed, the solution would then release the document to the end user based on that decision. So the Saviynt solution continuously monitors the data for these violations that have been configured or the policies that we have configured, and then identifies suspicious activities. So thereby providing a more comprehensive solution for Office 365. In addition, you could certainly provide the provisioning or access management of the data itself, on who has gained visibility, on who has access to that data, and how do we provision access to the site collections or to the data that is being stored on Office 365. It's a quick overview of how Saviynt complements Microsoft in providing comprehensive identity and security capabilities. As you can see at the top, the cloud comprises of a number of different solutions, including Azure, Office 365, and a number of different providers. As a key identity solution, Microsoft offers Active Directory, which has been a backbone of all the enterprise infrastructure, as well as now with Azure Active Directory, organizations are moving all the identities to the cloud. There are a number of business critical applications and physical assets. And the way the solution would work is that the Microsoft offers the identity management and the EMS suite, comprises of the federation capabilities, the authentication, the single sign-on, the mobility management, and the provisioning capabilities. As far as Saviynt is concerned, we provide the governance capabilities, from certification to role management to rules, and segregation of duty management, risk analytics, and so on. So in combination, we provide organizations with the most comprehensive solution that secures their infrastructure, secures their data, and helps with the next generation digital initiatives that they have. One thing to also note is there is the IT estate of most of your organizations extends well beyond Microsoft solutions. So what Saviynt provides is the ability to bring all of that on the same page, in the same panel, the ability to manage, govern, and secure these services as well. And then Oxford, as our partner, helps with the integration, able to bring on board customers rapidly and integrate with Microsoft as well as other non-Microsoft technologies, whether it is on-premise or on the cloud. With that, I conclude the presentation. If there are any questions, we have another 10 minutes on the clock. We are happy to answer those questions. We would like to a quick announcement. We have a similar presentation at the RSA conference at the Saviynt booth. So please join us there. We have some exciting gifts to be offered. So stop by at our booth. So with that, I open up the forum for any questions. Andy, any final comment?
Question number one, right? I'll go through the questions. Is the privileged account management firefighter checkout feature also available for connected on-prem database OS admin accounts or root accounts?
Yes, yes. So the concept is available. Thanks, Andy. It's a great question. The answer is yes. The concept here is that instead of providing a generic account, the concept of emergency or firefighter access should be extended to both enterprise as well as cloud applications as well as infrastructure. So yes, it is available for the enterprise database as well as applications such as SAP, Oracle, Microsoft, and others.
All right, the next question, is it possible to deploy only certain portions of the solution?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Again, a great question. As Andy was pointing out earlier, the solution is quite modular, right? So it's possible for possible for organizations to pick and choose the modules that they want to implement or deploy first. At the same time, it's possible for organizations to say, hey, I want to start with integrating Office 365 first, and then I would go integrate with Microsoft Azure. So it's not just modular, it also enables you to onboard applications, one, rapidly, and second, in a concerted effort that is aligned to your strategy and your requirements.
Okay, and then one more. Does the solution provide native integration with Microsoft products, including Microsoft Identity Manager?
Yes, indeed. So the solution itself is integrated with Microsoft products, very well integrated. So it is possible for us, for Saviynt and Microsoft to work in tandem. The integration has been done in a native way. So for example, in case of Microsoft Identity Manager, the ability to request access or certify access would happen within Saviynt. And when the need comes to actually provisioning that in the target systems, be it the Active Directory, Exchange, or any other solution that is integrated with the Microsoft products, it's possible for a Saviynt solution to trigger those activities from within the solution through an integrated API approach. Now, as I also alluded to earlier, the solution from Saviynt has exposed all these services as REST API. So the integration with Microsoft and other identity management platforms becomes that much more easier. And coming to addressing the integration from the cloud point of view, we use generally available Microsoft API, the Graph API, the other Azure APIs that are available to bring in the data in order to provide visibility, security, and compliance requirements. Whether it is Azure APIs or Office 365 APIs, we are looking forward to the APIs that get released, the latest and the greatest that Microsoft offers in terms of bringing it on board and integrating it with the Saviynt solution.
That concludes the questions I have right now. So if anybody has any additional questions, you got another couple seconds to put them in the window. If not, that will conclude our webinar. We certainly appreciate you guys attending.